Well, good morning. It's Phil Hahn here, and I am super stoked to be hosting a conversation with the one and only Tracy Robinson, who's the CEO of CN Rail. Folks, CN Rail is the largest rail company in Canada, controlling over 31,000 kilometers of track across North America. It's a $113 billion company with market capitalization effective today, with over 25,000-ish employees. Tracy is running this company. She is doing an amazing job. So if you want to know anything about that, just Google Tracy Robinson CN Rail and you'll see lots of great stuff in terms of her accomplishments and achievements and the value of the company and everything that's been happening since her tenure. So great stuff. Tracy's a mother of four amazing adult daughters. She grew up on a farm in rural Saskatchewan, has had an amazing trajectory in business, and has held several important leadership roles across major companies in North America in her business career. She's a graduate of the Wharton School of Business with a master's in business administration, which is a great school, and I know some other awesome people that have gone there too. And today we're really, really honored to have Tracy here. So Tracy, welcome, and thanks for qualifying your time to be here.
Thanks, Phil. It is a pleasure, and it's great to see you on any day. So thanks for the time today.
Thanks. So let's start with, can you share your journey to becoming the CEO of a $113 billion company, and what were some pivotal moments to this occasion, to be at this, juncture in your life?
Well, I think none of us would have expected this. I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan, as you know, and large farm family. And I knew from that vantage point back on the farm how important the railways were. But the farmers, well, still they're not big fans of the railroads. And but as I went off to university and was graduating, thinking about what I was going to do with my life, the railroads were recruiting on campus. And so believe it or not, my dad actually advised me, take a job with the railroad versus some of the other offers, because they've been around forever. There'll be a good kind of stable job. And I I accepted a position at the time with Canadian Pacific Railway, CP Rail. And, at the time I knew how important they were to the farm community. But what I learned pretty quickly is how important the railroads are to the economy and to running pretty much every industry. So I took a succession of roles at CP over, it turned out to be 27 years, from sales to marketing to asset management to strategy to I was chief of staff of the CEO to treasurer, finance, to customer service, to operations, from Regina to Calgary to Vancouver to Edmonton to Montreal. So I got with every job, I got the broader and broader perspective of the overall business. And it was a tremendous education. And it gave me the opportunity to step then into TC Energy, which is energy infrastructure, and see a lot of similarities. It's long linear infrastructure like railroads are, but this was solving kind of different problems and had different challenges. So I ended up did procurement for a while, and I ended up running the Canadian natural gas business unit. So operating gas pipelines, but also building big gas pipelines like Coastal GasLink. And it was a tremendous experience around what it takes to create infrastructure in this time in our lives and in this country. And I was there when this opportunity came along to come back to the railroad industry and to play a role. I mean, what a gift, what an opportunity and an honor to step into CN. But it's been, in truth, kind of like coming home.
Yeah, that's amazing. And by the way, congratulations on your Report on Business Award, as well as that was pretty phenomenal. We saw that all over the news, and that was great. So reflecting on your career, which achievements would you say you're most proud of today, and why?
I've got a lot of years under my belt now. And as I reflect back, there was always big deals, and there was, lots of great projects and successes. But the ones that make me feel warm, the ones I remember the most, it's usually, it's not the positions and it's not really the deal, but that sense of warmth and pride comes more from that experience of doing something tough, really tough, something you didn't think you could do with a really good group of people. And that process of going through it, and your brain becomes bigger, your capabilities become bigger. But that moment where the team, where this group of people start to understand what's possible and to step into it and to create something completely different is magic. But it also changes magic, partly because it changes forever their view of what they're capable of. And it's that those are the best experiences, when you see that light go on for yourself and for others around exactly what is possible. Those are the ones, that are far bigger than any particular deal or any particular role. That, some of them were very small, some of them were very large, that I reflect back on with a tremendous amount of pride. It's really about that ability to have an impact.
Yeah, and affect change, right?
Yeah.
So what were some significant challenges you faced as a woman in business, especially in your senior roles within Fortune 50 companies, and how did you overcome them?
Well, you know what is, when I started out a long time ago, not 38 years ago, as a woman, you were often or always the only one. And so a lot of the difficulties came from just being the only one and being different. And the challenge, of course, is to find a way to come to a table, a room, a situation, or anything else where you have people hear what you have to say, not just see that you are different. And so, you get good at it. You develop some skills over time, where you can read a room, where you can read a situation, and you can understand what's going on and know what to use to be able to move either a person, a situation from one place to another. As I become more and more senior, of course, any bias that exists out there now is much more subtle, right? But it's still the same skills that you use around being, you need to have really high EQ. You need to know what you bring. You need to know how you can move a situation and how you can nuance it in a way that makes people around you comfortable. Because what we're all after is just that ability to have an impact, as you said, to be able to drive a place or a person or a situation from some place that it was to some place that you want it to be. And it's become part of who I am and how I operate. But I think it comes from that. So there's a lot of good that comes from going through those types of kind of circumstances, situations. You develop some pretty important skills.
Love it. So how would you describe your leadership style, and how's it evolved over time?
Well, when you start, at least when I started back in the railroad industry, this was the days where it was very male dominated, but it was also very command and control. So back in the days when the leader had the answers and directed kind of what the outcomes needed to be. And as you grow up, you become a product of that environment that you grew up in. And if you're going to be successful, you need to know how to lead in that environment. I became as good as the next person at doing that kind of stuff. But over time, there was two things that happened. One was you come to understand more of who you really are and how you have impact. And you start to learn kind of the most impactful ways for you to bring to bear on any situation, right? And then the other thing that happened is that I had touched so many places at CP, instead of the traditional route of finding a function like commercial or operations and just going up and succeeding in that function. When you do that, when you pick one kind of function, you have a lot of technical competency, whether you're engineering or you're in operations or you're commercial or you're in finance. And quite often, if you've never left that space, your leadership comes from that technical perspective because you know the answers. But if you've grown up kind of moving from functional area to functional area, you're not an expert in anything. And that's the situation I found myself in. So for me, leadership became around understanding what we were trying to get done here, what was going to be important in it, having to move it from A to B, and then really being able to rely on the people that I was working with because they had the technical expertise. So I started to build a leadership capability that was more around understanding that kind of thing, understanding that leadership is about setting direction around making everyone understand what we're doing and why, and in the simplest way possible, and around creating that kind of change. So that's the evolution that I've been on. It's been a gift to me over time. That kind of set of experiences that made me realize, that really my ability to impact was about lifting and shifting and being able to move people. So it's been a tremendous gift.
Love it. In what ways do you believe female leadership style contribute uniquely to business success?
Well, this is one we could have a long conversation, and I'm sure you and I will have a long conversation on this one at some point in time. I've heard a lot about female leadership and male leadership, and I'm not sure that I agree that that exists necessarily. I do think that there are characteristics or traits of leadership, maybe leadership traits, that are more feminine. And these are usually the ones that you hear that are more coaching, asking questions, listening, encouraging. And then there are characteristics or traits that are more masculine in nature. These are the ones that tend to be more decision-making, directive, that command and control. But as I've gone through my career and my personal life, I've found that the best leaders are those that have access to that full range of skill sets, right? And this usually comes from experience, when to use what in any company, any situation, any room in order to move the situation from A to B. And that, that's a lot of experience, but that's what I try and build in mine, is I can be as directive as I need to be. And in any crisis, you need to be able to be directive. You need to be able to make decisions. But sometimes the right thing to do is just to ask questions or to encourage. And so I think, the leadership we should all aspire to is to have access to that full range of capabilities.
What initiatives have you championed to support the advancement of women within your organization?
Yeah, well, this has changed over time. I mean, when I started, there was all kinds of women in efforts, women in rail, women in supply chain, women in real estate, women in whatever. And I think that was more about making women, in this case, see others that look like them, right? And feel comfortable because of that. And we're still seeing some of that, and we're seeing it in some of the visible minority groups, which is really important. That along the way in my career, as women, we started to feel like we didn't want to be made different and singled out. What we wanted to do was not go to the women's networking event. We wanted to go to the executive networking event, where it was women and men. And so I think it depends on the circumstances as to what's needed. But you have to be really aware of what you're trying to achieve, whether it's women or any other kind of underrepresented group. You need people to feel comfortable. You need them to see themselves. You need them to understand the possibilities. But most of all, you need them to be able to have access to the opportunities. So much of development, 70 to 80% of development is actual experience. If you want to develop into a leader, you have to have experience. And so what the challenge is providing the developmental experiences to anybody who wants them, so that they can create the career that they want to create.
So balancing personal life and high demand roles obviously is a challenge for many. How do you manage this balance, and what advice would you have to give to women to striving to do the same?
Oh man, this is a tough one, right? And I don't think anybody can do it all, right? So we all need to make choices. We all have the same number of hours in the day. And for me, early on in my career, I decided that what I really wanted to do is I wanted to have, through my career and my life, is to have an impact, right? Because otherwise, what's the point? You want to kind of make the place better. And I wanted to be a good mother. So as I went through life, those were the two things that I used as a framework to make the choices that I needed to make. And life unfolds in chapters. So early on in my career, before I had kids, I invested, and probably, over-invested in my career. I chased everything. I wanted to learn everything. I put in a lot of hours. Once I had my children, you don't have that same kind of capacity. So someone gave me a piece of advice when I'd had my first child, and that was spend the time and the money, whatever you have in your life, to create the infrastructure, put the infrastructure around you so that you can spend the hours on the things that are important in your life. And for me, that was impacting children. So that may mean childcare, that may mean other help at home, so that the hours that you're spending are on the things that are going to move the needle in your priorities. So you got to sweat the big stuff, not the small stuff. But I would tell you that there's no formula to this. There's no recipe that everybody ultimately creates their own version of what good looks like in this. And, I did that for me. I'm now coming into the next chapter when my kids are all, young adults now, and I enjoy them in a very different way. And I get to turn my attention to grow differently and to broaden the kind of impact that I think that I can have. So no easy answer, very personal, but I think that everybody has the same hours. You got to make choices. You can't do it all.
Well, and I think that, to touch on that, when people say balance or I live a balanced life, there's no such thing as balance. It's a counterbalancing act, in that your fitness may be amazing and your relationships may be great, but your business life is suffering. Your business life is out of control, but you've gained a bunch of weight and your relationship is suffering. So we're constantly having to counterbalance. And I think that's an important part of it. And also, focus. People saying, oh, I'm a great multitasker. Well, multitasking is really only an excuse to do a bunch of things in a mediocre manner. And in order to be terrific, we must be very specific and focused. And, at least those are things that apply in my life. So
I agree. You kind of get what you invest, right?
Yeah, you got it.
So you invest where it's really important to you. And, what is that saying, that you can't be disappointed with the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do?
That's right.
So whatever you want to achieve in life, it's going to take some effort. It's going to take you better like it, right? You got to like it. You should be chasing the things that you like and that help you grow, but you're going to get back what you put in. And so, there's no easy out on this stuff, as you know.
So what advice would you give to women who aspire to reach leadership positions in industries traditionally dominated by men?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think, I think every industry was at one point in time dominated by men. So I think about it through the lens of every industry. You got to step into it, right? So firstly, I encourage every woman to, because there's so much to learn. And so if you think about how you're building your capabilities, how you're building your career, you got to find something that you think is worthwhile doing. So I'm at the railway because I wake up every day and, I think we power the economy. This economy wouldn't run, and it's not going to grow unless we show up in the right them every day. And that gets me up and going with a passion to kind of make it get better and better every day. So you got to find something that you like to do. And then you got to push yourself to the point that you're growing. So, I didn't grow. I didn't start thinking that I would be so uncomfortable my entire life and my entire career. Right? But what you find out is that what I believe is that the best experiences and all my successes came because I was uncomfortable. Right? So I tell people now that unless you are staring at the ceiling 3 or 4 nights a week saying, what have I got myself into? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to be successful? The kinds of conversations I know you've had with yourself, Phil, then you're never going to grow. You're not growing. So you got to get out of your comfort zone. Doing the same thing over and over again is good. You'll become an expert at that piece of it, which is great if it's what you're going after. If you want to grow, you've got to step out of an area of comfort and into discomfort, and you have to do it repeatedly. I would tell you, most of the good things that have happened to me in my life, whether they felt good at the time or not, came from getting outside, being comfortable every single day. It's not a great feeling in the moment, but boy, it leads to some pretty special places.
Comfort's a killer, right? We know that comfort is a killer. And, one of the common traits I see amongst champions of industry, whether it be in athletics or sports or whatever, is that it's their reaction and how they deal with failure, and understanding that failure is a necessary event and not an identity. And they remove the you from failure to keep moving forward, right? And you want to fail as often as you can and really invite the failure. And that's, I had one of my mentors tell me one time, listen, Phil, I know you're not going to be able to get to 100 yeses really quick, but I want you to get to 100 no's as fast as you can. Okay. And so that's something that I teach to now, is get to 100 no's or get to 1,000 no's as quickly as you can. I know you're not going to get to the yeses, but strive for the 100 no's. So yeah, that's awesome.
My client once told me, it was after, we'd closed a big deal, and he had sent me an email, and he was the first one. It's everywhere now. I read it everywhere now, but he was the first one to introduce me to this quote around the man in the arena. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was from Roosevelt in 1914 or something, the Citizenship and the Republic speech. But there's this oft-quoted piece of that called the man in the arena, the nut of which is that where else would you want to be but in the arena? It doesn't matter if you win or you lose or how much blood you leave on the field, in the effort, but that the real glory is in the challenge and in the trying. And far better to do that every single day than to sit on the sidelines and watch someone else do it. And that's kind of means something to me. It's kind of the way I approach my life and my career. No matter how it ends, I'd rather be in the arena.
Love it. Love it. Can you share a piece of advice you wish you'd received early on in your career?
Well, you know what? I've spent my career with thinking that I couldn't do it. I think they can now call it the imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people have it. It's been attributed a lot to women, but I think it's as much out in the men that I meet as it is in the women. And you question yourself, you question your capabilities. And I would say early on, and even across my career, it's made me move slower than I'd like with the benefit of hindsight. It's had me not step up as quickly as I would have liked. And I think if someone would have told me very early in my career that I would finish my career still not thinking that I was good enough to do it all, and if I could get my head around earlier on, that you just got to step in, and that I would be uncomfortable most of my career, and that the best stuff that came in my life would come from not being comfortable, that things would have moved more quickly. I learned that along the way.
Love it. What changes do you hope to see in the business world regarding women's leadership in the next decade?
Wow. You know what? I'm embarrassed to say 38 years or so into my career so far. And my biggest frustration, we're still talking about women in leadership. We're still talking about initiatives, and we're talking about quotas, and we're talking about all that stuff. You know, the reality is this. It is a moral imperative that we bring together people from all backgrounds, and that we make all of them welcome, right? It's the right thing. But it's also a business imperative. Right now, I would tell you that if I can't figure this out in this company, then the economy will not grow as fast as it would otherwise grow. It will limit the growth if I can't figure out how to get more people, and I need to appeal to every part of this society as we think about how we're going to resource the growth in this country, this company, in this country, and in almost every effort. And those who figure it out are going to have a material competitive advantage. So, you know, we often talk about, you know, the benefits of you know, the inclusiveness and engaging with visible minorities. Really what the benefit is the quality of the business outcomes that you get, because what you're bringing to bear and what you want to bring to bear is a whole bunch of different perspectives. And the way that we, you know, the proxy that we use for it is, you know, different backgrounds, you know, gender, race, you know, background, different educational stuff. You don't want everybody all looking the same. The value and the quality comes out of the differences. And so the faster that we learn to embrace the differences, the better the outcomes are going to be. And so, you know, what changes I want to say, in truth, success will be when we can stop talking about this, because it's just how we are and how we operate. And boy, I hope I'm still here when that happens.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, you're actually, believe it or not, you're saying, oh, my business career, 30 years, 30 plus, whatever, 20 years, is you're still in your infancy. And, you know, I like to say, people say, well, what's next for you, Phil? And I say, well, I'm not even started yet. And I truly believe that if we are healthy now and we are staying active and we are passionate about what we're doing, then it's not work. And, you know, we're just getting started. And so no matter where you are, a lot of my mentors in their 90s, some in their late 90s are still working 5-6 days a week, and they're extremely passionate about it. They haven't had to work for 50-60 years, but they are still doing it because they are passionate and affecting change. So, yeah, I think this will get started. I think Tracy, I think you're in your infancy. I think there's so much more around the corner. So there you go. You're just getting started. So, okay. Who've been your role models and mentors, and how have they shaped your journey?
So they are many, right? And one of the things that, you know, as I said before, you're a product of the environment you grow up in. And so it's so easy to say, and you're encouraged in some ways, and when you're in big corporate life, that you mimic or you take on the characteristics of someone ahead of you, because that's what's worked. But what I find, I mean, all of that has influenced me. I mean, I go right back to my parents, who you knew. You know, my dad was a great example of service as a leadership kind of capability. He was never the big celebrity, the big personality. He lived in service, and that was how he impacted. My mother, who grew up at a time when women didn't overtly exert kind of leadership, was in fact in charge of everything. She influenced and moved everything, even though most people didn't realize it. But she got more done than anybody else did. It just, she did it in this way. It taught me the power of influence, right? And I tell people around this place that, we give you, we put you in a position, we give you the gift of organizational authority, but if you have to use it, then you're not doing your job. We need it in some cases when it's time to be directive. But I look at, I'm imagine nobody has a title, nobody has an office, and you look at who follows who. Those are the true leaders, the ones who actually lead through influence and example. And so as I've gone through my career, I'm a great watcher of people and of circumstances, how I learn, right? And so I've watched, and I take a little bit from this person and a little bit from that person because it's worked, and if you have EQ, which I think is critical, it's something that you build into yourself and that you can then start to practice. But the total goal, the absolute goal, is how do you lead through influence, and how do you create the outcome by helping other people arrive there. So what my mother was so good at, and I've seen great examples of over my career, but it's never going to be one single person. You can admire the accomplishments of people, but the style is always going to be a compilation of little bits and pieces of what you've seen and what you've done over time, and you make it inherently you.
Yeah, you take all the bits and pieces. Love it. Yeah. So what personal qualities do you think are crucial for success in leadership roles?
You got to be a learner. You got to have high EQ. You've got to have a passion for wanting to make an impact. You've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. But leadership, I'm not one that believes that leadership is about kind of the person, the celebrity, the whatever. If you've ever read Good to Great, which is one of the great business books, if you've read it, right? The biggest lesson I took when I read that is this level 5 leadership, which is if you're successful when you could extract yourself and the engine keeps going as though you weren't there. It doesn't rely upon you or your personality or your presence, that you build something that sustains itself. And it's that kind of humbleness and desire for impact as opposed to personal success that I think is just so critical to creating long-term impact.
Amazing. So for women who are watching or listening to this interview and are inspired to take the next step in their careers, what would be your call to action for them?
Well, just step in, right? In my career, I've never said no yet. In some cases, it looked like it was a bad decision, but generally it's worked out well for me. You got to step in. Your path is going to be ultimately about your experience and your exposure. So you only get experience and exposure by stepping in and doing it. You got to just take it on, and don't wait for someone else to create it for you. Don't think that you can sit and map it all out. It will never turn out that way, I guarantee you. But you own it. Own the next experience, right? Own the one that you're in. You will never be where you are now again. So make sure you get the most out of it. Make sure you leave your fingerprints on it, and then just step into the next one. It will work its way out. It will make sense by the time you're at the end and looking back, and when you're 90 or whatever age you are. But you gotta just step into it. Too many people hesitate. Too many people need to make it. You need to know where it's going to lead you in the next step. Just step into it. Just do it.
Wow. Well, I want to, how can our audience connect with you or follow your work and initiatives aimed at empowering women in business? You're not on social, right?
Well, I am on LinkedIn. I'm not a big, I'm a big consumer of social. I'm not a big poster of social, but I am in LinkedIn.
Gotcha.
So you can follow me personally there, or, you can come along on this journey at CN. Everyone I'm here, and we're looking to build and grow the economy, and we would love to see a lot more women and visible minorities involved in this adventure as well. But I love people come and introduce yourself.
Amazing. Well, Tracy, I want to thank you very much for your time and again, qualifying your time to be here. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege connecting with you and chatting here, and appreciate the share and the amazing insight that you've given our audience. And I hope you have an amazing, amazing day.
And you, and I can't wait till the next time, Phil. Say hi to Dar and we'll see you soon.
Cheers. Bye.